There comes a moment in life when someone treats you as if you are disposable, as if your presence held no weight, no value, no meaning. They toss you aside effortlessly, believing you will remain broken, silent, invisible. But what they don't realize is that your silence is not surrender, your silence is elevation. Your silence is transformation. Stoicism teaches that the most powerful response is often the one without words, the response that leaves them alone with the echo of their own actions. You are not here to beg people to recognize your worth. You are not here to convince anyone to appreciate you. You are here to become stronger, wiser, calmer, and more aligned with your true purpose. And when people underestimate you, when they discard you, when they believe you will crumble without them, your silence becomes the storm they never saw coming. This video will reveal why your silence is more destructive to their ego than any confrontation, any argument, or any emotional outburst could ever be. It will show you how your calm withdrawal becomes the collapse of their inflated self-image. And as you listen, remember, the one who walks away in silence holds the real power. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Your support helps us grow, reach more people, and continue creating powerful Stoic content to strengthen your mind, your spirit, and your path. Subscribe now and be part of a community built on resilience, growth, and wisdom. 1. Your silence forces them to face themselves. When someone tosses you aside, they do so believing they still control the narrative. They assume your emotions will orbit around the decisions. But silence dismantles that illusion. Silence removes the fuel they were expecting to feed on: your reaction, your pain, your confusion. The absence of your voice reveals a truth they never prepared for. You do not need closure from people who created chaos. You do not need apologies from people who disrespected your presence. You do not need validation from individuals who could not recognize your value. Silence is a mirror. It forces them to confront themselves. And for people who acted out of ego, pride, manipulation, or superiority, this is the one experience they cannot handle. They expected you to chase them. They expected you to cry. They expected you to crumble. But your silence shows them that their importance in your life was an illusion they created, not a truth you believed. This is why your silence collapses their ego. Their control depended on your reaction. Their power depended on your emotional availability. When you became silent, you became unpredictable. And nothing terrifies an insecure ego more than losing control over the story they built in their mind. Your silence is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is discipline. It is the beginning of your transformation. And it is the beginning of the downfall. 2. Your silence exposes their illusions about you. When someone tosses you aside, they do it from a place of arrogance. They believe they've already figured you out. They think they know exactly how you will react, how much pain you will feel, and how desperately you will try to fix things. They built an illusion in their mind, an image of you as weak, dependent, emotional, and easily manipulated. But silence shatters that fantasy instantly. Your silence forces them to see a version of you they never imagined: calm, grounded, self-respecting, and unbothered. It reveals that their assumptions about you were not just wrong, they were delusional. Silence shows them that you were never dependent on their approval. You were simply loyal. You were never attached to their validation. You were simply genuine. You were never trapped in their presence. You were simply committed. And once your spirit recognizes disrespect, it withdraws, not dramatically, not painfully, but quietly and permanently. Your silence exposes the biggest illusion their ego believed, that you would never walk away. But you did, not through rage, not through confrontation, not through begging for closure. You walked away with dignity. You stepped back with self-awareness. And that is something their ego cannot process. Because people who take you for granted expect noise when you leave. They expect chaos, emotional reaction, and desperate attempts to hold on to something already broken. Instead, they were met with silence, and that silence became the loudest message you could ever send. Your silence teaches them that the version of you they created in their mind was nothing but their own imagination. And that realization crushes them. It forces them to question what else they were wrong about. It forces them to see the truth they tried to ignore. You were the stable one. You were the loyal one. You were the calm in the storm. And they tossed away the very person who brought balance into their life. Now your silence is exposing everything they refused to see, and it is breaking their ego from the inside out. 3. Your silence removes their ability to control the story. When someone tosses you aside, they expect to control how the story unfolds. They expect to walk away looking like the calm one, the strong one, the rational one. They count on you reacting emotionally so they can point and say, "See, this is why I left." Their ego needs you to speak so they can twist your words. They need you to argue so they can feel justified. They need you to respond so they can maintain their self-created image of superiority. But when you go silent, you remove the greatest weapon, the ability to manipulate the narrative. Your silence leaves no words to twist, no reactions to exaggerate, no emotions to mock, no arguments to distort. They're left with nothing but the truth they tried to avoid. Silence forces them to face the reality that they cannot paint you as the villain. They cannot blame you for chaos you did not create. They cannot pretend you were unstable when your silence proves your discipline. They cannot convince others that you were the problem when you walked away peacefully, calmly, and with self-respect. Silence leaves them as the only active participant in the situation. It puts their behavior on display with no distraction. It leaves their decisions exposed under a light they cannot dim. Your silence becomes the evidence they cannot escape. And this is where their ego begins to collapse. They realize they cannot control the story anymore. They realize they cannot shape the narrative around your reactions. They realize they are now responsible for explaining why they lost someone who never disrespected them. The burden of explanation is now on their shoulders, not yours. Your silence gives them no excuse, no escape route, no justification. It becomes the quiet truth that reveals who they truly are and who you truly were in their life. And the more they try to explain what happened, the more obvious it becomes that they were the ones who failed something valuable, not you. This is the power of silence. It takes control out of their hands and places dignity back into yours. 4. Your silence shows them you don't need what they took away. When someone tosses you aside, they do so believing they have taken something important from you: love, attention, comfort, support, or emotional stability. Their ego convinces them that walking away will leave you empty, confused, and desperate to get back what you lost. But your silence delivers a truth they never expected. You don't need anything they removed from your life. Your silence shows them that what they offered was not a lifeline, it was a distraction. It shows them that what they provided was not completion, it was temporary comfort. It proves that you were never dependent on them. You simply appreciated them. And appreciation is not the same as dependency. Silence sends a clear message: you didn't lose anything essential when they left. You simply made space for something better. You simply returned to yourself. This realization terrifies people who believe their presence was your foundation. Their ego needs to believe that you needed them to feel whole. But your silence proves that your identity, your peace, your strength, and your purpose were never tied to their presence. You were whole before they came. You are whole now that they're gone. Silence reveals that you don't chase what was never aligned with your growth. You don't grieve the loss of what wasn't meant for your future. You don't cling to connections that crumble at the first sign of discomfort. And you don't run after people who retreat at the first sight of accountability. They expected your world to collapse. Instead, your silence reveals that your world is standing stronger than ever. Your silence teaches them the most painful lesson an inflated ego can learn: you were not the blessing they thought they were. I am the one who brought value. I am the one who brought stability. I am the one who held everything together. And I walked away without begging, complaining, or looking back. That truth hits harder than any words you could ever say. Your silence is the reminder that your worth doesn't decrease when someone fails to recognize it. It increases when you stop giving it to the wrong people. 5. Your silence makes them feel the weight of losing you. When someone tosses you aside, they don't feel the weight of it immediately. At first, they feel free. Their ego tells them they made the right choice. They convince themselves you were replaceable. They believe someone better is waiting for them. They assume your absence will make no difference. But as time passes, the silence begins to settle in, and it becomes heavier than anything you could have ever said aloud. Your silence creates a void they cannot fill. Not with distractions, not with temporary people, not with pride, not with ego, not with denial. Because your presence wasn't shallow. Your presence carried depth, stability, and consistency. You were not just someone they spent time with. You were someone who brought meaning into their life, even if they failed to see it, and once that kind of presence disappears, the emptiness it leaves behind cannot be ignored. They start to notice small things first: the peace you brought, the way you listened, the way you understood them when nobody else did, the way you made life feel lighter, calmer, and more grounded. These are not things they can replace easily. These are not qualities they stumble upon every day. These are not the kind of energies that return once they've been dismissed. And your silence makes that reality sharper with every passing moment. The absence of communication becomes a reminder of what they lost. The absence of your voice becomes a reflection of their mistake. The absence of your presence becomes a lesson they cannot escape. Your silence becomes the consequence of their actions, not out of revenge, but out of natural justice. They tossed you aside believing they could walk back into your life whenever they wanted, believing your heart would stay open for them, believing your forgiveness was guaranteed. But silence teaches them that access to you was a privilege, not a right. And they lost that privilege the moment they treated your worth like it was disposable. Now they feel the truth in their chest. Now they feel the loss they didn't expect. Now they feel the consequence of underestimating a loyal soul. And the more your silence continues, the heavier that realization becomes. 6. Your silence forces them to see their own behavior clearly. People who toss you aside rarely understand the impact of their actions in the moment. Their ego blinds them. Their pride protects them. Their impulsiveness controls them. They act without reflection, without accountability, without clarity. But your silence removes all distractions and leaves them alone with the truth they tried to avoid. Their behavior was the problem, not your presence. Silence becomes a spotlight. It illuminates everything they refused to acknowledge. It reveals the selfishness they disguised as confidence. It exposes the disrespect they tried to normalize. It brings their mistakes to the surface where they can no longer deny them. When you don't argue, they can't blame your reaction. When you don't defend yourself, they can't twist your words. When you don't chase them, they can't pretend you were desperate. When you don't engage, they can't pretend you shared responsibility for the decision. Your silence removes all excuses and forces them to face the hard truth. They mishandled a good person. They underestimated someone loyal. They dismissed someone valuable. They lost someone rare. This kind of realization hits slowly but deeply. It arrives in quiet moments, late at night, early in the morning, or unexpectedly during the day when something reminds them of you. It arrives when the people they thought were better fail to offer what you once gave effortlessly. It arrives when they see traits in others that make them miss your presence even more. Their ego hates this, because silence eliminates all the defenses they used to protect their pride. Silence leaves their conscience exposed. Silence makes them replay their actions, their words, their decisions, over and over, until the truth becomes too loud to ignore. Your silence becomes the mirror they never wanted to look into. But now they must. They must face the reality that they were not mistreated. They were privileged. They must acknowledge that your patience wasn't weakness, it was compassion. They must accept that your effort wasn't desperation, it was love. And they must understand that your absence is not punishment, it is consequence. Stoicism teaches that truth is most powerful when spoken without words. Your silence is not empty. It is a message delivered in a language the ego cannot escape. And now they see themselves clearly, maybe for the first time. 7. Your silence becomes the beginning of their regret and your rebirth. There comes a point when your silence no longer just unsettles their ego, it breaks it entirely. Because silence carries a truth that words cannot express. You have moved on when someone tosses you aside thinking you cannot stand without them. Your silence becomes the moment they realize you are not just standing. You are rising. While they expected you to fall apart, you were rebuilding yourself. While they assumed you would chase them, you were choosing yourself. While they assumed you would wait, you were growing stronger in your own direction. It becomes proof that you didn't lose them, you found you. And this realization triggers something deep inside them: regret. Not the regret of losing a body, but the regret of losing a soul that brought peace, loyalty, and emotional depth into their life. A soul that understood them more than they understood themselves. A soul they thought would stay no matter how they behaved. Your silence teaches them the most painful and humbling truth: you were rare. You were irreplaceable. You were the blessing they mistook for the ordinary. And now that silence has made that reality clear, regret settles in like a weight they cannot lift. But here's the other half of the truth: while their ego collapses, you are reborn. Your silence gave you room to heal. It gave you space to reflect. It allowed you to detach. It helped you rediscover your worth. It freed you from emotional noise and opened the door to clarity, strength, and inner calm. Silence becomes your transformation. Silence becomes your inner awakening. Silence becomes your return to your true self, wiser, calmer, stronger. People who toss you aside never expect you to rise without them. But you did. And that rise is the final collapse of their ego. Your silence proves that their absence didn't break you. It freed you. And now they must live with the truth that will echo in their mind long after you've healed. They didn't walk away from someone weak. They walked away from someone powerful enough to rise in silence. Conclusion: your silence is not just a tool, it is a declaration. It is the quiet yet unstoppable force that restores your dignity, protects your peace, and exposes the truth about those who underestimated you. Stoicism teaches that strength lies not in anger or revenge, but in discipline, calmness, and self-mastery. By choosing silence, you reclaim control over your life, your emotions, and your future. The person who tossed you aside may never fully understand the power of what you've done. They may never admit the impact of your absence, the weight of your silence, or the clarity it brought to their life. But that doesn't matter. What matters is you, your growth, your peace, and the unwavering knowledge of your self-worth. This is your moment to rise. This is your moment to rebuild without distraction. This is your moment to walk in silence while letting your life speak louder than any words ever could. When you move forward with discipline, focus, and serenity, the ego of those who discarded you will collapse under the weight of their own mistakes, quietly, powerfully, and inevitably. If this message resonated with you and you want more guidance on Stoic wisdom, self-mastery, and inner strength, subscribe to this channel right now. Join a community of people committed to growth, discipline, and rising above negativity. Hit the notification bell so you never miss content that empowers you to live stronger, calmer, and more resilient every single day. Remember, your silence is your strength. Your calm is your weapon. Your presence is your power. Walk away quietly, rise deliberately, and let life reveal your true value while those who underestimated you face the consequences of their choices. Subscribe now, embrace your silence, and step into your power.